Hello and welcome to this episode of the Her Success podcast. On this podcast, we interview highly successful and aspirational females with the view of inspiring the next generation of diverse leaders within this space. Her Success is brought to you by Engtal. We are an engineering and technology recruitment firm that really care about diversity. If you're looking to hire engineers on your team, or you're an engineer looking for your latest role, please get in contact. In this episode, we interviewed Jennifer Lee. Jennifer has an amazing story. She is a first-generation immigrant from South Korea. She's had a very successful career in the life science world, having held senior roles at large organizations such as Pfizer, Astellas, and Gilead. She is a CEO, a board director, and an investor at a number of startup organizations. And she's also co-authoring a book with the world-renowned author Chris Voss. He brought us the book Never Split the Difference. It's an outstanding episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get to the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Her Success podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Jennifer Lee. Jennifer is an executive in the life science industry. She's a CEO on the board of directors at a number of firms. She's an investor and a keynote speaker who helps companies turn breakthrough sciences into life-saving treatments. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So for first things first, I would love to get a bit of an overview of your background. I know you grew up in South Korea and kind of moved to the US in your early years. So maybe tell me a little bit about, kind of where you've started and your sort of journey up to today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in South Korea, and early on, I lost my father and my grandfather at age 5 and age 7. And so we struggled a lot financially, and at school, I struggled because of the, loss at such an early age. And then I moved to the United States in 1980s, late 1980s. And then I went to junior high school here, high school and college and graduate school here. So, from there, then I really wanted to understand the cancer. I could share a little bit about how my father passed away. He got into a car accident and he was transported to a hospital that was very far away from the scene. And he didn't make it to the next day because the doctor saw him and saw that he didn't have any external injury. So he wasn't seen by the doctor till the next day. Of course, my father didn't make it till the next day. So he passed away several hours later after arriving at the hospital. And then my grandfather passed away in cancer. And so when I came to this country, I wanted to study cancer biology and understand a little bit about cancer and how it affects human bodies. And so I went to University of Illinois at Chicago to study biochemistry. And then I ultimately got a master's degree in regulatory compliance and clinical research. So my early entry to the biotech world was when I was a sophomore in college. I applied for a summer internship because I thought, what a better way to spend your summer in a biotech world and learn about, how the drug and treatments are being made. And so I applied for 2 companies. One is Abbott, and the other one is GD Searle. Now, GD Searle no longer exists. So that company reached out to me, and I also got an offer from Abbott. And Abbott gave me a job that would work on a laboratory. So did GD Searle, but GD Searle gave me a lot more opportunity to rotate within the preclinical setting. So I went to work for that company. Now, they didn't give me a lot of money, but that's okay, but I wasn't motivated by more money. Abbott offered me a lot more on hourly, but I wanted to gain a lot of experience. So I joined GD Searle. So just to kind of fast forward, I spent about 26 years in the biotech industry now. And over the years, have successfully helped companies to launch about 7 novel new chemical entities. into about 140 countries. And those treatments are now life-saving treatments, and now they're generating about $20 billion in value. So I am really excited to be part of that journey with companies that are innovating and bringing life-saving treatments. So I'll stop right there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for firstly sharing your own personal story, and congrats on, such an amazing career. The number of the guests that we've had on this show have been first generation immigrants, and you see so many stories of people being very successful that come from this background. And I know a lot of our listeners are also first generation immigrants. How do you think that shaped you, and how has that kind of like influenced you over your career?
Yes. Well, I mean, when my father passed away, I was only 7 years old, and my was homemaker. So she raised four of us, and I was the youngest. I'm the youngest of the family. So I watched a lot of struggles my mom had to go through, losing her husband at age 38 and not being able to run the company. The company that she took over was my dad's company. Upon his passing, the company dissolved right away. So she took a piece of the company, and she also had to raise four of us. So I watched my mom work 7 days a week, 14, 15, 16 hours, and she did everything. She asked for help by calling her friends and say, hey, any job you have, whether it's a restaurant, cleaning job, whatever it is, just let me work for you so that I could provide for my family. So what shaped me was that the resilience in the face of adversity and not giving up and working hard. So those are the three things that I've learned growing up, watching my mom toil away. And so when I came to this country, that's all I wanted to do. I work hard, do well at school, and get a good job.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get kind of overly political or anything like that, but I do think that you have a certain perspective that when you come from that background that I think is impossible to get if you didn't, and it really allows you to appreciate the world that we live in, and the world that hopefully our children will live in and their children will live in, compared to where a lot of other parts of the world and a lot of other scenarios where that's not possible. If you were to give advice to a first generation immigrant that's maybe come to the US and they've struggled or they've been here for a couple of years, I know I'm thinking of a couple of listeners that we have on our show that I know in this boat. What advice would you give to someone like that to have a career like yours?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came to this country, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends or people that I knew, and so I had to kind of start all over and embrace loneliness and solitude. And that was totally okay, because at the time I was a teenager, and teenager likes to be left alone. So I was totally fine being left alone. But I didn't realize that there's so much opportunity that you could tap into. This country offers great opportunity if you have the will and desire to get it. Back then I was more quiet and I guess more inert, and I was always looking for someone to reach out to me. But what I would say is that over the years, as I gained more confidence and learned the language and became more comfortable with myself, I realized I need to be out there and really communicate who I am, what I'm passionate about, and what I want to do, and ask for help. Especially my generation, the first generation, we have so much pride, we don't want to ask for help, but there's an art of asking for help. You can run ideas by somebody, and you could just be vulnerable and ask questions. It's totally okay. We don't always have to do things on our own. So one advice I would give the folks that are out there struggling is to network. I know that word, it can be very frightening, but it's important for us to have the group of advisors around you who is a little bit smarter than you, who is a little bit more wiser than you, who thinks differently than you, to help you guide when you are stuck. And then surround yourself people that have gone the path. So you get that additional perspectives when you have to make a critical decisions. So I know some of us are very introverted, but you've got to go out and make new friends, get to know people, talk, and just network. And I think the building relationship is important. Getting to know people is important. So yeah, one advice I would give is to go out and network.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I'm also an immigrant, and I think my kind of immigration maybe wasn't as extreme as yours. I spoke the language when I moved here. I knew a handful of people. But in my own journey, I think when I first moved here, I very much latched on to those people that I knew because they were the only people that I knew. And when I started to kind of really enjoy living here and stretch my wings a little bit, I think it was exactly what you described, is when I started looking beyond the immediate friendship group, making friends with new people, networking with new people, going to new events, pushing myself out of the comfort zone a little bit. So 100%, I couldn't agree more. But one of the things I wanted to dive into in this conversation is you're currently co-authoring a book with Christopher Voss. For those of you that don't know Christopher Voss, he is a very famous author. He wrote the book Never Split the Difference, which I read years ago, and it's a fantastic business book centered around negotiation. What inspired you to do that? I was also wondering how you met Christopher Voss, and then maybe we can dive into a little bit around the empathetic leadership, which I know is the topic of the book that you guys are writing.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving a shout out to the book that's coming out. Chris Voss is a great author. And when I first encountered his book, I couldn't believe myself. It was a different negotiation book than I used to read. And so it was very fascinating. So I followed Chris Voss for quite some time. I listened to all of his podcasts, any interviews that he had done, just to gain a little bit more understanding of the negotiation. When it came to negotiation, I was horrible at it. Again, that immigrant mindset. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to please other people and do the hard work as I can. But I've never really understood the value that I was bringing to the organizations that I was part of. And so Chris's Never Split the Difference book was just eye-opening. So one day I was invited to apply to write a book with him. So I thought about it and then I said, nah, I can't, I'm not going to get selected. Of course, there's going to be a fierce competition. Who am I? I shouldn't do it. So I immediately shut down the computer and I walked away. And then I spoke with my husband and my children, and they said, well, Mom, you should go for it. No, this is a one-of-a-kind opportunity. Go for it. So I completed my application and they went through the several interviews and they said, you know what, we would love to work with you. So that's how the journey began. So it's a chapter that I'm writing with him, and he's very passionate about empathetic leadership, and so am I. Empathetic leadership really gave me an opportunity to work with team, and because of the empathetic leadership, which to me requires a really deep listening to the needs of the employees and team members and the customers, really helped me navigate these challenging times when the companies faced issues. So just to give you a little bit about myself is that I help companies when they need a little bit of turnaround. So I go to those companies and I help them. And I guess the first step is to really listen and understand their needs. And then also build relationship at a personal level instead of at a business level. Business level is more, for me, is a transactional. But if you develop personal relationship, then you can really understand what they're going through. So for those of us who read a lot of negotiation books, you understand BAFTA, right? What's the win-win situation for you and for me? And so all of those things helped me greatly to be successful. And so going back to the book is that I'm contributing to one chapter, and then I think he's got other awesome contributors such as Nick Nickton, who is an Emmy winner for over 20 documentaries. So you can look him up. So I really have a really awesome authors that writing the book with him, and I'm one of them and really excited about it. The book is
Wow,
coming
yeah.
out in spring of this year.
Nice. Well, I will certainly be buying it, and yeah, hopefully a lot of our listeners will too. Expand a little bit on the empathetic leadership, and what advice would you give to a leader who's trying to implement that, and why is it so important to build that level of empathy when you are a leader?
Yeah, I mean, like we all go through life, right? Life throws curveball at you, and when you go to work and somebody missed the deadline, okay, you can have a conversation closed door and say, we were waiting for that report and it just didn't come on time, and what's going on? And you could have that conversation. Now, nobody wakes up in the morning and say, how can I screw it up today? How can I not deliver a report, miss deadlines, and make somebody really miserable? Nobody does that. So having that empathy to come from the point of view of their point of view goes a long way. So the empathetic leadership is, okay, delivering accountability, which is really important for leaders, right? Making sure the team delivers the project on time and there's accountability, sense of accountability, but at the same time, closed door, there's a human to human conversation. I've seen some of the struggles here. Is there anything that I could do to help? But also you communicate and say, hey, Chris, next time if you think you're going to be late on your report, just let me know and let me help you. Let us help you. So developing that one-on-one relationship, I think, is really important. And that's where the trust begins, building relationship begins, and the camaraderie, collaboration begins. So I think empathetic leadership is a building block for great business success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that being free to ask for help, being free to mess up, it's almost the cornerstone of all innovation. Like if people don't feel they can do that, then they're never going to innovate or put their head above the parapet. Like you said, you have to have the trust in your leader to be able to say, I can't do this, or I'm a bit out of my depth here, or I don't think I'm going to be able to get this done. I was watching a Simon Sinek video recently, and he said, I'm going to paraphrase this incorrectly, but he just said the difference of saying something like, you are underperforming versus you are underperforming, are you okay? Like that immediate personal, as you said, and everyone wants to do well, right? No one wants to underachieve. No one wants to mess things up. And if you can relate to people on a personal level, I think the business result massively will come.
We interrupt this podcast for a quick 30-second introduction to Intel, the host of Her Success. Intel is a US-based staffing agency specializing in engineering and technology. We have an insatiable passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and part of our mission is to balance the diversity scales in our industry. We are so tied to this mission that we donate $1,000 from every underrepresented placement made to our very own nonprofit, Diversify the Future. We then use the money to fund scholarships for underrepresented groups of people to help them obtain a STEM degree. If you're an engineer or a tech professional looking for a new position, or maybe a hiring talent for this space and want a recruitment partner, please get in touch.
I know you've always been a big fan of mentorship and both being a mentee and a mentor. Can you tell me a little bit about any mentorship relationship that you've benefited from, why it was so beneficial, and then equally anything that you've done to kind of pay that back and kind of mentorship that you've been able to provide?
Yeah, I can think of two things. So one is I mentor a young middle school while back, and he was always fascinated by me flying to San Francisco to New York and to Chicago. I did super commute before the pandemic, and he was always fascinated by that lifestyle. But once we got over that lifestyle, because it's not cracked up to be, right? Flying over
It
here and there.
sounds great, but yeah.
It
No, I
sounds
know,
great, but
yeah,
it's not.
yeah.
Um, and then we talked a little bit more about STEM, and specifically biotechnology and innovation and science. He was really fascinated by it. So we talked a little bit about cancer and what I'm involved in. And fast forward, I don't know, about 10 years now, he's in college. He's in San Francisco doing research. And so just to kind of summarize, like over the last 10 years, it wasn't like a mentor mentee official relationship, but it was my daughter's friend, and I was able to share my experience as a biotech executive, and that person to have that additional insight from person that's working directly in the state in this industry was really helpful to him. And so that's really rewarding that somebody was inspired enough to have the curiosity to look into going into biotech and doing research to help patients. So I think that's fabulous. The other part is people come to just gain some perspectives on, hey, I'm struggling with particular employee. It's not mostly with their questions are mostly about, hey, how did you get into biotech? How did you become successful? But some people call me and say, hey, I'm having some problem with the lab technicians or scientists. And how do I make sure that he's performing or she's performing? How do I make sure that I'm hiring the right person? So I share a little bit about my experience and all the terrible mistakes that I made. And that person is he's a CEO of a biotech company in agriculture, and he's doing fine. He just added a fourth scientist, and he's doing really well. So, I mean, like when I see those things, the conversation, right, and brainstorming, and sometimes we get on the phone for a long time to kind of tackle the problem and see the problem from a different angle. And then later I hear that, yeah, the company has moved on to the next stage of the development. It's really great. It's awesome. So yeah, I mean, but what I gain from it is that I get to be part of their problems and then problem solve together. And the fact that they thought of me as someone to brainstorm together on the ideas on problem solving gives me a great pleasure, and I'm privileged. I'm thinking like, who am I? But they call me up because they trust me enough to be vulnerable and accept their issues. So yeah, I learned a lot. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I think a couple of great points there. Firstly, I think just the real importance of mentorship and getting whether it's a coach or a mentor or it's just someone to help and guide you. I know just from personal experience, I don't know why, but I was always not averse to it, but it was never top of my priority list. I always knew I should get a coach. Everyone keeps telling me I get a coach. I'll get one at some point, and I just never really prioritized it. The day that I did, it just took my business to the next level. And it wasn't really anything specific the coach or mentor told me. It was just having time to sit down and bounce ideas off somebody else. It was almost an enabler of me, of kind of a lot of the ideas sort of had, but he was able to really kind of help bring them to the surface and put in, kind of an execution plan. So for anyone that's listening, I'm a huge advocate of get a mentor, get a coach. And I think one of the other points you mentioned there, which is critical, is focusing in on some specific things. So like, I think sometimes people will say, I want to be mentored, I want it to be coached. But if you can go in, to your point with the technician, like, look, this is a challenge that I'm facing right now. Specifically, can we work on something over the next 2 or 3 months to get me from here to here? I think when people do that, the level of kind of impact that you're able to have is a lot more than some of the more general kind of like, help mentor me, I guess. So some great points there. There's a couple of initiatives that you're doing that I wanted to dive into a little bit. I know you're on the board of 2 organizations, How Women Lead and then How Women Invest. Could you tell us a little bit about those initiatives?
Yeah, so How Women Lead is an organization, nonprofit organization that focuses on women leaders, exec C-suites, and executives. And that organization is at a national level where it invests in companies that are woman-led and woman-found. And the statistics is really interesting. We have about 54% of women in this world, and or maybe in the United States, 54%. And then we live longer. Women tend to live longer, and there's a statistics that back that up. So there's a report that says that we build wealth, right? Women are all working, and we build wealth, and that $70 trillion that we generate are going to be managed by men, not by women. So How Women Lead is a national organization that focuses on C-suites, and we also give and invest in women-led and woman-found companies. Interesting statistics is that only 2% of women-found and women-led companies are funded. That's a staggeringly low percentage. And also only 14% of women are serving on a board and serving as a C-level in corporation. So that number needs to be changed, and we need to work together to fund women-led companies, women-found companies. And so how women lead and how women invest, it's a one organization, and we're trying to make sure that we fund our women-found companies, make sure that they have enough funding to move the needle from one point to another. So for example, if I am a CEO and founder of a biotech company needing money, needing funding to file patent, and I don't have the money to do it, but if I get funded, I could use that money to patent my IP. And with that money, I can hire a technician for my laboratory, right? If I have the money, I could run additional non-clinical laboratory experiments to move the needle to get to the next stage. So these funding is really important, but it's not there. Women have been struggling to get funding, especially 2023 with the economy turbulence and a lot of issues there economically. They weren't able to get funding, and it's only at 2%. That's extremely low. So the organization is to make sure that we pay attention to the issue that we're facing.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, very important. I had a guest on season 1 of this show, and she talks a lot about that and just the different level of scrutiny that a female-run organization will go through when going through the funding process versus a male-led organization. Even the questions and the things that the investment for the organization, even the questions they'll ask and how they assess organizations that are female-led are incredibly different. There's almost an extra level of questions that they don't ask male-led ventures that they will ask female-led ventures. So I think it's absolutely critical, and really valuable work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's a number that we need to change, because we as a woman, I mean, we have so many challenges that are in front of us. I don't know if you've heard of poppy seed syndrome. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, and I mean, men have poppy syndrome too. They have imposter syndrome as we do, but imposter syndrome is one of them. The way we communicate is a little bit different. That doesn't mean that we are not capable of running companies. We are completely capable of running companies. It's just that we, as you mentioned, we are scrutinized more, and we are not given the benefit of the doubt. And so it's just hard to raise money in this economy. So we definitely need to work together to change that equation, and that's where How Women Lead organization come in. And we've been very successful last year. We right now are looking to make investment into women-led companies, and that number is about 10,000. We're dedicated and committed to invest in 10,000 companies, and we're on our way. We're making it very close. Yeah.
Wow, just huge impact. Those 10,000 entrepreneurs, but also the knock-on effect of all of the innovation and all of things that those companies will create is amazing to think about. So yeah, that's fantastic. We're nearly at the end here, and it's been a wonderful discussion. Final question I had, you are obviously really working on the cusp of innovation right now. I think you're in a number of different companies and advising different organizations. Tell me something that you're really excited about for 2024.
2024. I heard a lot about AI, so I think AI is going to play a huge role in innovation, and gene therapy, cell therapy are those two areas that we're going to see a lot of activities. What I'm personally excited about is, as we move towards AI infused drug innovations, what I'm really excited about is to see a little bit more open data source for companies. For example, I do a lot of research around the company's innovation and their data. And one of the go-to places, these peer-reviewed articles, and you comb through the data and you put it all together and try to understand what the data look like for that particular molecule or modality. But I'm advocating for biotech companies and pharma companies to open up their data. Maybe start out with a small data set, so it's not all of it, because we have to protect our IP.
Sure.
But start out with the small set of data that have failed in clinical trials. Make that available, make it open, so that the next company who's doing the same innovative work do not have to repeat everything from ground zero.
Mistakes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we build on top of that instead of doing everything that company A does and company B does. And so then naturally the drug development duration is going to be shortened if we already have the data right. Yes, then that means we can bring the innovative therapy to patients earlier. So that's what I'm really excited about. I've incorporated the company last year, and hopefully I could advance a little bit further this year.
I never even thought about that. It's a very interesting concept, isn't it? Because of course companies need to look after their IP, but how much further forward could we get if, again, we learn from every other company's mistakes? You will start your innovation from here rather than making all the mistakes and starting it from here. So yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, so hopefully I think it's doable, but right now everyone's just thinking, I'm not sharing it until someone else shares it. But I think we're making a pretty good progress, because I've spoken with a lot of companies and they're willing and open and they're interested in. So I just have to make that happen. We're doing all our best to work hard in behind the scenes to make this happen. So we'll see, but I'll keep you updated. But I think we could maybe shorten the life cycle management by twofold. I don't know. We'll see, but we got to start somewhere. Yeah,
absolutely, certainly do. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. And I thought this was a really, really interesting discussion. Definitely one of the best episodes we've had. I think your journey is inspirational. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will feel likewise. And we've touched on some really, really important issues here. So thank you so much. For anyone listening, Jennifer's contact details will be in the episode. If the book is live by the time this episode goes live, I'm not sure it will be, but we'll put a link for just that as well. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope everyone dials in next week.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Her Success podcast, brought to you by Intel. We hope you found it inspiring and insightful. For more conversations with inspirational women, why not check out our interviews from season 1? If you enjoy the podcast, please take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners who can benefit from these empowering conversations. Don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn at Her Success, and follow us on Instagram at Her Success the Community for a daily dose of inspiration. Want even more Her Success in your life? Sign up for our newsletter on our website to receive exclusive information on future episodes, blogs by our amazing guests, special features, upcoming events, and much more. Thank you for being a part of Her Success community. Stay tuned for our next episode in 2 weeks' time.